I want to start off with what may sound a little bit cliche, but my first question for everyone is, where do we go from here? We certainly, it seems like we get the impression that the city of Fort Worth has completed the vast majority of these recommendations. TABC has done various things, diversity training, and appointed a liaison. What is left for your agency and, in the case of John and Blake, your organization or the LGBT community to do going forward to make the city of Fort Worth a better place to live?
I think the biggest challenge we face today is changing an entire law enforcement culture that's been in existence for over 120 years within one city. Keeping in mind when this incident occurred, I lived there 6 months. I didn't even know that the department did not have a GLBT liaison because my law enforcement experience was in Phoenix, where my entire 21-year career, we all knew who the GLBT liaison, we actually had 2 at one point. So changing a culture is a significant challenge. In 2010, starting with class 127, I walked in with Sarah Stratton to an entire room of police recruits. And I basically introduced her as a training instructor. But this is how I introduced her. This is Officer Sarah Stratton, and she's a lesbian. And the looks on the police recruits' faces were priceless, because they all go, "What did he just say?" And she's not hitting him. And I had to explain to this new generation, we serve in blue, but we are human beings in these uniforms. And I respect Sarah and her partner. I know Nicholas and Ricky, her 2 sons. This is what makes Sarah a unique police officer and an asset to our department. So let's talk about it. And just in that one class, 2 people came out as recruits and were in shock that no one was going to threaten them, no one was going to alienate them. They felt welcomed. But keeping in mind, I have 120 years of history that we're trying to progress forward. So I think what we still need to do is continue to have our discussions and continue to talk about it. And John, as well as Tom Annable and anyone knows, if there is a hate crime in Fort Worth, our phone will light up because we will serve. And we will keep changing and keep progressing. But the second part is across the nation, this will happen in another one of the cities that we visit and or we know. And I invite those chiefs, when your incident happens, when your Rainbow Lounge happens, you better call me, because you are going to make some significant mistakes as a police chief. Let me help you, and let me get you to understand how you offended an entire community with your actions. And I make that offer at every National Chiefs Conference I go to. And I've been contacted in Atlanta when the chief in Atlanta had, George Arms, when he had his raid. Then we started talking about how he needed to reach out and serve, because they were ignorant. They were ignorant like we were ignorant. And I still have ignorant officers, and we have officers around the country that are ignorant. But we continue to work and try to progress. I'm sorry I took so long.
Bob?
My job's a little easier than the chief's is. I only have 70 years that I have to overcome. TABC was actually created in 1935, so I'm looking at 75 years that I have to try to overcome. It's just like the chief says, we continue to have the dialogue and to talk and to reach out to people. I sat at the commission meeting last month, and we promoted a whole new host of sergeants to lieutenants that were promoted across the state. And there was a young man there named Sergeant Ryan DeQuire. And he and his life partner stood up there while he received his lieutenant's badge. That would have never happened 10 years ago. And I'm proud of the steps that the agency has made to move forward. I was tickled to death to go up and shake Ryan's hand and congratulate him on his lieutenant's promotion. You know, folks, we just have to continue the dialogue. I've had lunch with Thomas and you know, Chief Halstead and I and some of his people and his majors and we talk pretty regular. And, you know, folks, you know, if you think that what you saw up here, that's not us. And when it talked about the 2 high-level supervisors that were reprimanded, that would be me, okay? And I understand, like the chief understands, the buck stops here. I was on vacation in Fredericksburg, Texas on June 28, 2009. Okay? But I understand my people messed up and I took a hit for it. I get that. I understand that. It won't happen again on my watch. I can tell you that. But we've got to continue the dialogue. We've got to continue to talk.
Hi, I'm Leanne Wiggins. I'm the new liaison. If anybody needs my contact information, I have a few cards with me with my email on there. So if anybody has any questions that I can help answer, or anything that you just have a concern about, just get with me after the program, please.
I'm going to brag on her. Okay? She and her partner are new foster parents, approved by the state of Texas. And they have got 2 beautiful children living in their home. We are so proud of Leanne.
Where do we go from here? I think Fort Worth is not unlike every other city in the United States. You know, when Harry Truman integrated the armed services, did all of those senior sergeants stand up and say thank you? No. I'm a lawyer, and my clients range from people who have lots of money to very little money. People who are in business, starting business, or otherwise. And what I try to do with each one of those people is find out who they are. Find out what they're really like so I can connect with them. It's no different. It's no different than in every community. We have to have straight allies. And those who don't believe, for instance, in gay marriage are not evil. Most aren't. Some, I can think, are. But they're not. Some of them are my friends. We have to understand those people. We have to make them our allies. The more they know us as human beings, not as a gay lawyer, but as a lawyer who happens to be gay, the more progress we'll make in each city. And that's what our job is from now on.
So where do we go from here? I've been, always have been a firm believer that, real and lasting change originates from the streets, whether that's the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender civil rights movement, women's civil rights movement, African American civil rights movement. Tons and tons of good has come from Fairness Fort Worth and from Robert's film. But along with that, a crucial piece of the puzzle is to have a pointed, strong civil rights movement that can't be replaced by, or that can't be without, direct action activism in the streets. It's my belief that everything that happened in Fort Worth, I think that what Queer Liber Action did and other organizations did, wouldn't have, all the good wouldn't have come of it if it wasn't for so much pressure being put on the city and calling out Jeff over here on the stupid shit he said and the stupid shit he did. But I'm glad we did, and I'm glad a lot of good came out of it.
For me, I'm going to echo exactly what they said. It's all about education. It's all about educating people on the issues and exposing people to the issues. And I really do think that it takes the radical with the rational, as Chuck Potter said in the movie, to educate, because not everybody consumes information the same way. So I think it's all about education, and it wasn't my goal on June 20th, 2009 to make a film that was going to be used in training or to be a civil rights piece, but I'm really thrilled to be a part of our movement to help educate people on a national level. Chief Halstead has seen this movie 2.5 times. I'm bless your heart. So Together we presented at the U.S. Attorney's Office earlier this month for their first ever LGBT diversity program. So it begins with education, and I think that that's what we're all here committed to.
Speaking of the film, as Robert mentioned, you've all seen it now at least once, if not more times in some cases. But what do you see as the film's role and sort of historically in this saga? Is it closure for you? What are some of the highlights of the film? What's the most painful part to watch? What's your favorite part? Talk about the film a little bit and how you see it as part of this whole experience.
Okay, since our time is limited, I'll stick to as short as I can. The most frustrating part for me was the reference that Meredith Baxter makes about the out of context part. Here's what happened. If you go back from June 28th to April of 2009, we had a taser death in Fort Worth. It was a 49-second taser deployment. MHMR patient, mental health patient, young black man, was aggressive towards a female officer. The 49-second was a direct violation of policy. Brand new chief. We had 3 taser deaths in Phoenix when I was in command there. But I was directed by our city attorney, shut your mouth, don't say a word. You're going to create a lawsuit for us, chief. Don't say a word. June 28th happens, and we know council's on a 3-week break, and we are in the mayor's office on Monday, and I'm trying to explain to them how massive this is going to be. I'm trying to warn them of the tsunami that's headed their way, and they're on a 3-week council break, and I am being looked at like, you don't know Fort Worth, you're a rookie chief, keep your mouth shut. Yet there were about 15 to 20 news cameras downstairs at City Hall that Monday evening demanding someone to say something. Mayor wasn't going to talk. City manager wasn't going to talk. The city PIO wasn't going to talk. So they go, Chief, you're in uniform, why don't you go talk? And I said, I don't have the report. I don't have the facts. I haven't been briefed. We still don't know what had occurred. It wouldn't be right for me to go talk yet. No, you need to go talk. So basically my interview, and I have the B-roll. I have 62 minutes of me fielding questions from an extremely aggressive media crowd on a Monday, on a very, very slow news day, and this was their time. And in that B-roll, I am doing nothing but saying, that's a TAB issue, that's a TAB issue. Not sure that's a TAB issue. I can't comment about that, that's a TAB issue. And the media is pissed off at me. And they say to me, well, for Christ's sake, Chief, and I have the B-roll, so these are the words. For Christ's sake, Chief, can you talk about anything? And I said, the only thing I can talk about is I know Sergeant Morris arrested an intoxicated female that had 2 beers in her hands. That's all I know, because that's the only report I got in the system. And they go, well, talk about that. And I said, well, Sergeant Morris is a 9th degree black belt, and he could probably hurt any human being he wanted to, and all he did was simply take the beers out of her hand and walk her outside and processed her for an arrest. And then the reporter from Channel 5 asked me, well, how does that make you feel? And I said, I was happy with the restraint they used. Are you seeing the picture that frustrates me the most in the film? I have the B-roll, and I thank God for my friend, the reporter, who said, Chief, I saw the story that night. That's not what you said. Keep this B-roll to save your job. And I still have it today. But I do want to say the best part of the film was the fact that I have learned I would never, ever debate Blake or John in public. I know that for a fact. But I sincerely value the friendships we've built, and they mean the world to us. And we have jumped leap years. I know the pain, and I know the anger that existed, and maybe still exists today. And some of it's targeted towards me, and I understand that. But you have to always understand, and many of you do, that you're seeing a media story that was approved by certain other people to point a story. And when that statement was aired that night, my jaw dropped, and I realized how I am going to be hated. And that was the most frustrating part of me, was I talked about a sergeant, but they superimposed my quote on Chad in the hospital, and I was a dead man walking. I mean, who wouldn't hate the guts out of that human being that made that ignorant remark? But in the B-roll, you see it was in context for a different question. But Robert, I absolutely love the film. The reason I love it is because no one would tell the story and this told the viewpoints collectively, and I respect you for that.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play the B-roll from the Major Cloud. What was the most difficult part of the film for you to watch, and what do you see as the film's place in history in the saga?
Well, is it closure? No, it's not. We still have a lot of work to do, and we're going to continue to work. But you know, I have been a TABC. I've been employed by TABC. I'm fixing to do 25 years. And I was an agent, and I worked a lot of the GLBT bars, and I've been an agent on the street, and I got along fine with everybody. I didn't have any of these issues. And then when I came back from vacation and was hit with this barrage, and that's what it was, I was absolutely horrified at what had taken place and what it was looking and how it was shaping up. I mean, I was furious. I was livid, and I talked pretty ugly to some of my people, quite frankly, because we didn't do everything we should have done. One of the things that you don't know that I'm proud we did, and it was the right thing to do. And you keep hearing John talk about in the film, what's right is right. I have a lieutenant that works for me. His name is Gene Anderson. He is also a Presbyterian minister. What you don't know is Gene was at the hospital with Chad Gibson's family for days after that event, ministering to them and just trying to be there if they needed anything. And he had carte blanche to do whatever he needed to do for that family, and as much time as he needed to do. Now you may say, well, you're just trying to cover your rear. No, we're trying to do the right thing. And we felt terrible about the whole process. Now, is it closure? No, I mean, it's not closure. But like the chief says, I am so proud of the relationships that we have forged through this. Recently, some of you may know, there was some changeover at the Rainbow Lounge, and there was some damage done to the bar in the dark of night, and they called me. And I went down there on a Sunday morning and helped them clean it up. I'm tickled to death they called, honored that they called, and gave me that opportunity. 5 years ago, would that have happened? Absolutely not. Wouldn't have happened. So, I mean, we just got to continue where we are and just keep moving forward. And I'm real proud of the changes we've made and the direction we're going. We just got to, you know, it's not over. I don't think it's ever over. But I will say this, every time I turned the TV on and Blake was on TV, I thought, oh no, here we go again. he every time, it seemed like every time I turned it on, he was on the screen every time. And I thought, what is the deal? You know, because it didn't seem like we were ever going to get away. And it's not that we wanted to get away. We just wanted to move forward, get this behind us, learn from it, move on. And I'm proud of where we are now. But we're going to continue the dialogue.
That was a lot. Being in the agency when all this occurred was extremely difficult for a few of us that are out and open at work. So seeing everything that the agency did after this to try to help everybody learn from the experience and, you know, hopefully come out better on the other side is extremely helpful for all of us. So hopefully this was definitely a learning experience for everyone and it won't happen again.
I think the most difficult thing for me to watch is the pain. Because it's universal. Because everybody in that film, everybody in that bar, everybody who watches this film, who's part of our community, feels the same pain. Feels it when they see the movie, remembers it through their lives. And that kind of pain cannot be expressed to a straight community. The level of inequality, personal inequality, is difficult to translate to a straight community because they've never felt it. They've never been 13 and questioning, etc. And so it's always difficult for me to see that, because it brings back memories just as it does you. I think the best part of this film is, for me, is what as I do, with a tremendous sense of positive achievement, not for me, but for the city. It is an example for other cities as to what can happen. I hope this film is used as an educational tool, because better than people standing up and giving speeches about it, when you see this film, you understand what can happen.
For me, sort of along the same lines, a lot of the film was bittersweet. Sort of what John touched on. You know, it's difficult to watch the pain and suffering that people experienced at the hands of the Fort Worth Police Department and TABC, and the discrimination of the city. But also at the same time, it was extremely rewarding, and I was very proud to see the way the city, Dallas and Fort Worth and the surrounding area came together to affect change in the city. I mean, it was a very bittersweet, a lot of it. It was also very, very difficult, again, to watch some of the things that I wish had, come out a bit differently in Fort Worth, such as the officers getting, from my point of view, a slap on the wrist with the total 5-day suspension. I don't think officers that behave like that in a gay bar or any bar should be allowed to be on the force, period. And also, lastly, I'd just like to congratulate Robert. I think it's it's an honor to have worked with you, and really a privilege to have gone through this journey with you. And congratulations on all your success.
Thank you, guys. I hate to say it, but we've hit our 30-minute mark already.
Wow, already.
Yeah, we've given the signal. So I don't know if you guys would be willing to stick around for out in the lobby if anybody has any questions. I'm sure these guys would be willing to answer those. Once again, thank you guys for coming out tonight, and remember, share the trailer on YouTube and your social networks and your favorite bloggers, journalists. Tell them why this movie is important and why it should be in their area. John, thank you very much for hosting us tonight, and all the panelists here. Thank you, guys.